Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of L'Exclusive, the podcast produced by PaperStreet Web Design and Marketing. As always, I'm your host, Nancy, and today I'm joined by our web director, Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, if you tuned in last time, our last episode was about content tools that we felt would help our attorneys and other business owners when they're making their websites. So today we're like, you know what, let's embrace that topic and get a little more technical with the tools. So today we're going to share with you some more developmental and technical tools that even if you're not a web tech person, these will be easy for you to use. You can look at them yourselves, you can look at some of the data, and then trust it over to the experts like Andrew. As most of you know, like I said, tech experience is not my strong suit here, but all of these tools are tools that I actually use in my day-to-day communications with our clients. So most of these will be helpful for you to use and things like that. So as always, if you're listening to this as a podcast, you can always check us out on YouTube, because on YouTube we are videotaping this recording and you'll be able to see us using the tools and things like that. So either option is available to you. So our first two tools are actually going to be numbers 1 and 2. We're going to show 10 today. But tools 1 and 2 are very, very technical in the sense that if you ever are speaking with a web development company, either for a website redesign or you're switching hosts or anything like that a lot of times the company will ask you this information. And a lot of times our clients get a little nervous when they ask this sort of thing, especially if you don't have an IT department or anything like that. And this is tools to identify A, your domain, and B, your CMS or what your site is built in. Okay. Now, the domain is an easy one to understand. A lot of clients are like, oh, what is that? Your domain is if you are built in. Are you on GoDaddy or any other things? So where did you purchase your URL from? So a lot of times we recommend using a tool like a site like GoDaddy or anything like that. But if it's been so long you don't remember where you bought your domain or anything like that, we have 2 tools that are really great to help you with that. So the first one I'm going to show with you is a very simple and easy tool to use. It's called Who.is. So HWHO.is. Okay. And it's a really easy tool to use to check out where you got your domain from. So I'll pull up my screen for those of you who are watching on video. And here we go. So I just typed in one of the sites for one of our clients. It's Who.is, very easy to use. You hit the search button and it will show you exactly whose server it is, where your registrar info is, the status, and what's really helpful, it'll show you is when your domain is expiring, when did you purchase it, when was it updated, anything like that. So if ever you're swapping or redesigning your site, you say, okay, where did I purchase my domain from? You can use Who.is, very simple, very easy. And then we'll move over into the what CMS portion. So if you are you found out where your domain is purchased, but now you want to know where is your site being hosted, you could look at that with the web server. But a lot of times our clients don't actually know how to use that, but that's okay. This is easier if we're using a Wix site, a WordPress site, or anything like that. So if you don't know what your site was built in, and a site, like I said, a web designer or a web host is looking to ask you, all right, what platform is your website built in? Were you a WordPress site? And if you don't know, you just type in the URL right here. You hit the search button and it'll search for a couple of seconds and then it'll pull right up. So right here, you can see that your blog and CMS is WordPress, and that'll help you out when you're looking to make a swap decision. Andrew, any other clarifications on those 2 tools that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I will show on my screen a few examples. I'll start with the What's My DNS. So what was a little, of course, confusing is it was showing the server IP. So you can see here. But what's great about What's My DNS is you can actually choose whatever record you want to look at. So if we wanted to see where your name servers were, which is where all of your DNS would be housed, we can see that we use Cloudflare. So we know, okay, if I want to make an update for any of my records, for my email or my website, I need to go to Cloudflare. So a good way to test that is by going to this dropdown, selecting NS, and typing in your domain, and you can see where all of those records are housed. Of course, your IT team or PaperStreet are happy to help you with that. But I just wanted to explain a little more with this tool that it's very powerful and you can look up any type of DNS record, and it's great for anyone from beginners with the client who may not have a ton of experience all the way to advanced DNS experts such as myself. Now, moving on, another great tool is NordVPN. So you probably get all of these VPN ads all the time. We like to use a VPN when we want to test a website from a different location. So if you need to see how does my website load from Canada, or I'm in Florida, how does my website load in Boston or New York or wherever, you can quick connect to another network anywhere in the world. There's tons of locations in the US. We're by no means affiliated with Nord in any way. It's just who we use. But any VPN service, any of the big ones you see ads for, are really fine. And it's just a good way to see how your rankings look in other areas, how your website is loading in other areas. And also, there's a lot of caching that can get a little tricky where, hey, is everyone seeing my website updates live? Maybe I'm seeing an old version. You can connect to a VPN and then see what other users are seeing. So overall, it's a very powerful tool that we use quite heavily when testing.
All right, well, hopefully we haven't overwhelmed you thus far with these technical terms. But like I said, these are all just information that all of these tools are tools that you can use yourself or you can have your developers use for you. But like I said, it's just the goal is here is for you to have these options available to you. So the next tool that we're going to use is actually one that the PaperStreet team taught me how to use, and it's really great because a lot of times people are like, "Well, do I really need to redesign my website? Do I need to do any work to it? Because I think it looks great. Nobody's complaining that it looks old or outdated. So how do I know if I need to update my website?" And one of the most important things that I'll tell you is yes, the aesthetic of the website is extremely important. But on a technical level, is it running the way that it needs to? Because, like I tell our clients all the time, you may have a website design that's like 4 years old, 5 years old, and you could say to yourself, well, it still looks great because if you had a great design team, yeah, a really great website will continue to look great. But that being said, you don't want to use a cell phone that's 7 years old. You don't want to drive a car that's 7 years old without a tune up, things like that. So, if you want to worry about, well, is my site performing the way that it should? There's Google's Page Speed Insights, okay? You can Google this at any time. It's a tool available, very easy, anyone can use it. And you can pull up Google's Page Speed Insights, and I'll share my screen and show you that when you type in the URL for on Google Page Speed Insights, it will actually show you. It'll show you a lot of technical information that might be overwhelming. You could always Google it and see what these extra terms mean, but don't worry about it if you don't actually know what any of these mean. This is what we're looking at right here. This is a good tool that you can say, okay, how is my website performing? It shows your performance. It shows your accessibility. Now, this is ADA compliance, which is a tool that we'll get to in a couple more minutes. But like I said, it shows your overall performance, your accessibility, your best practices, and your SEO. Usually, and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, but usually I say you really want to be in the 90 or above here for your performance. If you're lower than that, like perhaps in the 70s or the 80s, you can always reach out to the developers of your site or your host and say, hey, how can we get that a little faster? If you find that your performance is not where it needs to be and it's substantially lower than that, then you have to say to yourself, do I want to really put the technical work in to get these numbers where I need them to be? Or is it at the time and place where I should say, well, you know what, let's just do a redesign because I'm going to be spending time on updating my technical performance anyway. And the great thing about the Google Page Speed Insights is two other things that you can know aside from the fact it's free. You can also pull it up and see how your site is performing on mobile. So, like I said, you can see if your speed is too slow or your accessibility isn't where it needs to be on mobile. And then, as well, you can also copy the link to the exact result. So, let's say you are the attorney, you're just looking at this for yourself, you have no idea what any of this means. You simply copy the link of the test and send it to your developer, send it to your host, send it to anybody who you think needs to look at it, and they can provide their insights as to whether or not this is helpful or what you need to do. Should we update our site? Should we just do the technical work? What would be the next best option for us? And this is also true if you're evaluating your current web host, because a lot of times clients will tell us, oh, I think speed is included with my site or things like that. So we'll say, okay, well, if your web host can do anything for speed, or they'll say that they do anything for speed, present this score to them and see what the options they suggest, what's included with your package versus what will be extra. Like I said, this tool, like I said, it seems overwhelming. It seems like it's really technical, but it's really great to just look at the scores and say, what does this mean? What should we do next? All right, Andrew, back to you for another helpful one.
Absolutely. That was a great recap of the tool, the PageSpeed tool. And just to add on to that, yeah, the 90s is definitely ideal for desktop. That's what we want to be at. But I would say on mobile, 80s is good. Anything below 80, though, needs some work. And that can be tricky on a lot of sites, even getting it to the 80s with the amount of scripts you run and so forth. So I'll go ahead and share my screen as well to show you our next tool, which is a Photoshop Lite. So this tool here is called Photopea, and this is what we use a lot instead of Photoshop now. Photoshop's a very heavy program. You have to pay monthly to run it, where this is really easy for basically a light browser version of Photoshop. So it works just like Photoshop does for resizing images. If you're familiar, you just would go and click new project, or you can open one from your computer, add a screenshot. So I'll just show you an example screenshot here of some very technical stuff, but the toolbar is the exact same as Photoshop. You can select things, you can resize, you can crop here. We use it a lot for transforming images where you're going to transform or trim or crop or resize. It's overall just a great free tool. You can see there's some ads on the side. That's how they make their money, but you don't have to pay for it. And Photoshop is at minimum, I think, $10 a month, something like that. So it's a really great tool for that. Moving along, I think I'll jump right into the image compression as well, Nancy. Since we're talking about photos, we use a lot of tools to make sure, as we were talking about with PageSpeed Insights for website performance, you want to make sure that your images are compressed. You hear about JPEG and PNG for image type. Google actually likes WebP as well, which is a new type of image extension, but it's very fast for loading web images. So you can compress your image here. You know, the name's a bit dramatic. It's compressor die, which, you know, maybe is a little extreme, but it is a software that works well. And you select the file, you compress it, and you can convert it right to a WebP. And that tool seems to work really well for us. Anything else you want to add for that, Nancy?
Well, yeah, I want to emphasize the importance on this tool, the image compressing, because for example, we PaperStreet, we build our sites into WordPress, which we use simple WordPress, no theme builders, no Divi, none of that stuff. We want to make it really good and clean on back end for our purposes, but also for our users. And a lot of times, one of the things that our clients like to go in and do is add their own pictures, add their own, images, especially if you're looking blogs or anything like that. And a lot of times what I'll run into is I'll see that clients have been adding these blogs, and then they don't understand these blogs with these images, and they don't understand why their site got so slow. And they're always like, "Hey, what happened? Why is our site slow?" or things like that. And that is something, like I said, that we can't emphasize this importance enough. That you should be compressing your images before you add them to your blog or your site. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to show you this tool, simply because we do want it. Like when we make our websites, or if you yourself, you're using your own website, you built it on Squarespace or whatever, and you're using these images, if you really want to make sure that you're doing it the proper way, you do have to make sure that you do compress the images. So like I said, this may seem minor and you may not realize why you have to compress it, but the easiest thing, like I said, I'm not a tech person, but if the image is too big and slow, it'll slow down your site. So you got to make sure that you're using the right formats. Right, Andrew?
Absolutely. And we use compressor die and TinyPNG. So TinyPNG is great too. I know Nancy uses this as well. But this is really good for bulk images. So you can see they do up to 20 images. We actually have a paid subscription here. We really like it. So just know that this tool is out here as well.
Yeah, and like I said, it's really important. So hopefully, even if all this technical stuff escapes you, just remember you got to compress your images before you put them on the website. All right. While we're talking about something important, I also want to talk about one of the most important tools that you should also be paying attention to on the web. And it's an ADA compliance checker. Now, I always explain this to our clients, but sometimes, they forget, or it just slips their mind, or they don't read my little helpful reminder emails. But depending on who you launched your site with, for example, with PaperStreet, we always make our websites ADA compliant when we launch. Okay. And we have other podcasts about ADA compliance. Andrew's done them with me. So just make sure you understand that your website has to be ADA compliant to avoid potential fines, potential lawsuits, potential damage to just your overall reputation and things like that. So if you ever need to know more about ADA compliance, like I said, go to paperstreet.com to read the blog or the other podcasts. But like I said, just assuming you care about ADA compliance and you're like, okay, I need to remember if my site is ADA compliant. I usually tell our clients, just check every so often, check every few months, check every year. Just keep it on your radar that after a couple of years, it has nothing to do with your website. It just has to do with the fact that new technology may have come out, or there might have been new protocol that the ADA compliance laws now require. So, like I said, so it's important to realize that these guidelines do change. In fact, just had a meeting with a client who's like, well, why do I have to worry about my ADA compliance? And there was the keyboard accessibility, the ability to scan your website via a keyboard. So, with that in mind, like I said, there are guidelines that are changing constantly, and you have to make sure that your site is following those guidelines. So what we have here is we have a tool that anybody can use, okay? It's the Wave Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool, okay? wave.webaim.org for those of you listening on Spotify. And this is a really great tool. It's not perfect, okay? Please don't ever rely on just one tool to see if your site is good or not good or anything like that. But this is what we use as the initial baseline test. This is what I use when I'm talking to a client or anything like that. Very easy. You type in your URL and it'll give you a score right on the other side. Okay. Now, this is the part where, like I said, the whole point of these tools is not that you necessarily are going to become an expert in these matters right now. But what you need to do is it'll give you a score, like I said, on the left, and it'll show you, okay, there are errors, alerts, features, ARIA contrast errors. We don't need to teach you all about that right now. And sometimes you will get a false positive on things like that. So at PaperStreet, obviously, we make sure our website's fully ADA compliant. So we're not necessarily worried about this one error because we probably know what it is or something like that. That being said, on the older sites that I see, when somebody hasn't done their compliance in a while, I will see errors with 13 errors. I'll see 15 alerts, things like that. So if you see a couple of these critical errors or contrast errors or alerts, anything that pops up, it may be time for you to have that web accessibility discussion. Now, if you're a PaperStreet client, you reach out to us, you look at the tool, you reach out to us, and we'll give you the full report on what it looks like to fix those changes. But if you're not a PaperStreet client and you do have a web host or a web provider that will make the 88 compliance changes for you, you show them their test results, say, hey, I ran the test and there's like 6 errors. Do we need to check this to make sure our site is ADA compliant and things like that? So make sure that you do, in fact, stay on top of it. And like I said, if you already want to, there are hosting plans with PaperStreet or other hosts, I'm sure, where you could have your ADA compliance monitoring built in. So like I said, if it's something that's particularly of concern for you, our California clients, like I said, ADA compliance is particularly hotbed over there. You might want to be checking this tool, or if you're in New York or anything like that, like I said, check it yourself. Either sign up for a host that'll be doing this for you, or even if it's you, you're checking to see if your host is doing this for you. But like I said, the Wave, webaim.org, web accessibility evaluation tool is extremely important to keep in your little arsenal of quick checks for your own website.
And to add to that, they also make a Chrome browser extension. So if you just go to your Chrome extensions and type in WebAIM, or Wave, you can see that and add it. And it's really easy on every page. Then you can see what your score is. And as Nancy said, 1 or 2 errors isn't going to put you in any type of serious violation. But yeah, if you are getting like 10, 15 errors, those definitely need to be done. And you can really just focus on the errors and the contrast errors and kind of disregard everything else. But that's all I have to add. Thank you for going over that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then the next tool we're going to talk about, we actually briefly mentioned when I was doing my content marketing tools podcast, the last episode, but I want to mention this one again really quickly, mostly because I'm going to ask Andrew for his perspective on this as well. However, there is a tool that you can do 1 or 2 sites for free. So if you're just checking your own site, it's free for you to use. It's for us, we have to pay for a subscription because we check multiple sites at a time. But it's something called Screaming Frog. And Screaming Frog is it's a silly name, but it's a really great tool for checking a bunch of various aspects of the site. And once again, this is not a tool that you need to learn every single in and out for or anything like that, but it's good for some overall perspectives. So here, when you download the program, I'll share my screen. When you download the program, you can actually just simply run in the URL of the site that you're looking for. So this is the program, it looks like itself, and I already typed in the name of one of our clients, and it creates this information that may look a little intimidating at first. So you see all of this different information. Now, if you have some knowledge of what this technical information is, you can export the report, and the report will show you things that you may already know about. So, for example, if you've listened to any of our SEO podcasts and you know, okay, is my page indexable by Google? That's important to know. What is my title tag? What are my meta descriptions? Which is my H1s? What are my H2s? Now, again, in PaperStreet, we do things like include Yoast SEO with our websites, so it's very easy to see in WordPress. But if you don't have a website that allows you to quickly make sure that you have title tags or meta descriptions or indexability issues or anything like that, this is a great tool to use, like I said. And the tool breaks things down even further. So it'll show you the word count of your particular pages on the site. What's really helpful is it'll show you when these pages were last updated. It'll show you if there were any redirects in place and anything like that. So some of this information may be overly technical, but it's a great tool to kind of get all this back end information for your website. Andrew, would you like to break that down on a technical level either further?
Yeah, I think even the best way to use this tool for a client would be if you needed to see all the links on your site. So there's not necessarily an easy way to do that by default in WordPress to see all of the pages that are picked up. This is a great tool for scanning and just seeing what are all my links. Are they redirecting anywhere? And that's really a good baseline tool for it. So when we're creating redirect documents for you, when you're going live with your website, we run that tool, we look at it, and we see what links need to be redirected. And that's really how we use it, mainly on a development side. And I think it's a great way for the client to use it as well, as a tool to view all of your links and to see what needs to happen with those. Maybe you need to delete some, redirect some, and so forth. But it's a good tool for that.
Also a good way to check if your site is getting too large as well. You know, if you're finding that you're a smaller firm and you've got like 5,000 pages or something crazy like that, maybe it's time to start compiling your blogs or anything like that. So like I said, it's a good baseline tool that you can use as much or as little as you want. Like I said, if you're just checking your site, it'll be free. So it's a good tool to just have in your arsenal. If you have an IT team, they can take a look at it or anything like that. All right, Andrew,
Absolutely.
what's the next tool you've got for us?
So the next tool is web.archive.org. And this tool is incredibly useful. If you, let's say you had an attorney on your website that worked there 3 years ago and you needed to retrieve bio information, or you had a blog post from 2012 that you needed to reference and it was deleted off of your site. Here, this service, which is a free service, they accept donations, but it's a completely free service and they take archives of your website. So you can see we have archives of our domain going all the way back to 2001. And then we can view every version, all these little areas on the graph you can see are where they indexed it. So we can view any versions of our site. Let's say if in 2017 we needed to reference, what happened, what did it look like in June on a particular page? What was the content there? We come there and this will load what the website looked like back then. And you can do it for any given page. Some of the styling might load a little funky, but overall, it's pretty much an exact rendition of what our site looked like in June 2017. But this applies to all dates. It's super, super useful for tracking down information that may have been lost or deleted, or, unfortunately too, we have clients who come to us where they might be getting a lawsuit claiming copyright infringement on an image, and they can prove here, oh no, this image was not here on the dates of the copyright and so forth. So it's just a very, very useful tool to use that we use heavily on the development team.
Interestingly enough, I use that tool in my client meetings as well because we'll discuss like redesigning the website and things like that. And sometimes a client will tell me, "Oh, we had this redesign by another company and we really didn't like it. We missed the old photos, or we missed the old colors of our site, or we missed blah 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 about what was on the site previously." And a lot of times clients don't realize that the site exists. So if you yourselves are thinking about redesigning your site and you say, "Oh yeah, I like how our website used to look," or maybe you have a reference site, like your competitor had a site that you thought looked really great, and now you're ready to redesign, but they've redesigned again. You can find what the original site looked like and use it as reference when you're having those design calls as well. So, like I said, these tools are really great for technical purposes, design purposes, and all of that. And then the last tool that we're going to show with you is actually a tool. There's plenty of them that are out there. In fact, I have one that I use. Andrew has one that he uses and things like that. But a lot of times people are like using screenshots. It's very common to send a screenshot to a colleague, send it to your web designer, your web development team, anything like that. And a lot of times people are just using control print screen or ship to print screen and things like that. And they're forgetting, how do I do the print, the screenshot and things like that. Particularly for me, I use something called LightShot. Okay, and I'll share my screen with you now. Again, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, or if you're listening by Spotify, this is available on YouTube. So I use LightShot. Now, this is available as an add-on to Chrome. So this is very, very easy to use. I love it, but that it's literally right there. I keep it very quick, very accessible to use. And it's very, very simple. So I can just open up a new tool window. I have paperstreet.com, and then you click on the little area that you're looking to select. Very, very easy. It's got this right here, and it allows you can draw arrows, you can draw boxes, you can draw lines, whatever it is that you're looking to do. You can save it, you can print it, anything like that. For me personally, I use it the most is that I do this little upload button here. And when you click on that little upload button, the screenshot will appear in another window, and then you can just copy and paste it, whether you're sending it in an email, whether you're sending it in a Slack message, anything like that. Like I said, this is the tool I prefer. But like I said, depending on if you're a Chrome user or anything like that, we also have awesome screenshot. And I think Andrew mentioned one other one. You can share the name in a second, Andrew. But like I said, the
Sure.
point is don't be looking for print screen buttons or anything like that. Make your life easier. And so install one of these tools, and your screenshots are easily accessible. You can mark them up, print them, save them, share them, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably one of the tools I use most. The tool I've been using for probably a decade at this point is called Droplr. It's spelled Droplr.com. And that's if you want a more premium one. It works really well on Mac as well, which I'm on. But they also allow, it's almost like Dropbox, where you also can click on any file and one click upload it, and it creates you a link. So it kind of goes above and beyond just screenshots and screen recording, where it also is file sharing too. And I use it for all my file sharing. So Droplr is one of the most important tools in my arsenal as a developer.
Well, like I said, that's what we were trying to do here. You can use the easy version if this is just you and colleagues sharing conversations and things like that. Or if you want to get more technical, you have another version about there. All right. Well, hopefully this was very helpful for you. Like I said, we outlined 10 tools that hopefully you can be happy to use on your own for whatever purposes you need. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye
Thank you
now.
all.